Welcome back with a smiling face. Links to previous episodes are given in the video description, so don't forget to like, subscribe and share the video. The Orphaned Secrets. Episode 2. Chapter 9. Sarin's POV. I knew I was in trouble the moment Jasper linked me to come to his office. He never linked me to come to his office unless he was going to lecture me about something. It seldom happened, but I figured out the pattern of his ways early on. That, and of course I can read his thoughts. I never indicated that I was doing so, but I honestly hated being lectured. Jasper always treated me like I was some child whenever he did, rather than his mate and this Pax Luna. When I got to his office, he had his fingers interlocked and they were resting on his desk. Kendrick and Jason were there as well, and I knew that I was in deep SHT. He never wanted his beta and gamma in his office when he linked me unless it was something that he knew could affect the entire pack. Sarin, sit, Jasper commanded. Even though he couldn't make me do anything, I did as he said either way. I sat between Kendrick and Jason and they were also looking at me curiously. They didn't know why Jasper called me in here, and when I tried to read his mind to get an idea, I found that he was blocking me out. Surprised that I'm able to block your mind reading? He asked. I looked at him with wide eyes. Yes, I know you cheat from time to gauge the reason for calling you into my office, but not this time. But how? Let's just say Olivia and Lorenzo have been giving me pointers. My mouth dropped open at the betrayal of William and Olivia. Do you have something you want to tell us, dearest? He asked. Not really. I answered. He lifted a brow at me and gave me an obvious look of displeasure. I cowered in my seat knowing that he was not in a playing mood. Sarin, what is it? Kendrick asked a little more nicely. I looked to Jason for help, but he also just lifted his brow at me. No one was on my side, and I knew that I was cornered. These guys wanted to know what I was hiding. I can't, I replied. Can't? Or won't? Jason asked. Both. Sarin, whether you tell me or not, it doesn't matter. I already know, but I'm giving you the chance to tell me yourself because I would expect that as my mate and the Luna of this pack, you would have enough respect for me to be honest, Jasper said in a serious tone. I know that Alexa and Xandra are a rare set of twins, but the real question is, how rare are they? He continued when I refused to say anything. I looked up at him, and it was then I realized that he had gotten the call from his distant cousin that he had been waiting for. Jasper. Sarin, tell me now, or I will go interrogate the girls. No. Don't. They don't know anything. I shouted as I stood to my feet. So, there is something that we all need to know, Kendrick said to me. I looked down at him and let out a big sigh. I wasn't going to win this, and I knew it. I sat back down and gave Jasper the look to let him know how much I hated him at this moment. What is it? Jason asked. Dr. Andrews had Dr. Marsh run some kind of detailed blood test of the girls. Who's Dr. Marsh? Jason asked. She's Gavin's mom. The doctor that did Keaton's paternity test, Kendrick answered, and I nodded in confirmation. What did she say? Jasper asked. In her expert opinion, she says that the girls may be direct descendants of the moon goddess. I trailed off softly and cowered in my seat a little lower. All three of them just stared at me with wide eyes, not saying anything. I waited a moment, but still nothing. Guys. Hold, what did you just say? Kendrick asked, shaking his hands and head. Moon goddess? As is in the mother of all werewolves. I nodded my head. Sarin, why didn't you tell me this sooner? Jasper shouted. I just found out not too long ago myself. And I promised Dr. Andrews I wouldn't tell anyone to keep the girls safe. They don't know anything. All they know is that they are special. Just not how special, I said, trying to defend them. That's where their alpha blood comes from. According to Dr. Marsh and Dr. Andrews, for someone to be a blood relative of the moon goddess, they also have to be born to an alpha. It's not as specific as being like me or Lorenzo, but I think you get the picture. T, Jasper muttered under his breath. What? I asked. That's why these girls are so rare, he said to no one in particular. What? I asked again. Come on, man, spill it, Kendrick said. Do you guys remember that story your mom used to tell us when we were little? Jasper asked Kendrick. Which one? My mom told us a lot of stories. The one where special werewolves are born, but no ordinary werewolf can go to, or find. Wait, are you talking about the Lunar Kingdom? That fairy tale about where all of the higher powers live and special wolves are born? Jason asked, and Jasper nodded in response. I looked between the three of them, really confused. Does someone care to share? I asked, waving my hand at all of them. What if it's not a fairy tale? Jasper asked, completely ignoring me. That's crazy talk, man, the Lunar Kingdom doesn't exist, Kendrick answered. Are you sure about that? What if it does? What if this is how direct descendants of the moon goddess are born? Jasper countered. But you said it yourself, ordinary wolves can't go there, Jason replied. The guys kept going back and forth with all of the what-ifs, and I started to feel very left out. I had no idea what they were talking about, as I had never heard of the Lunar Kingdom. This was a bedtime story my parents never told me. I started to get a headache sitting between these three burly men debating. Hey! I shouted, getting all of their attention. What, baby? Jasper asked, shocked that I yelled at all of them. What the hell is the Lunar Kingdom? You've never heard of it? Kendrick asked. If I had, would I be asking what it is? I replied with a tone so tchy it made him put his hands up. Geez, no need to get all snippy, he said and scooted his chair away. It's a fairy tale, Jason told me. I get that, but what is it? It's a place where all of the leaders of the supernatural apparently live, like the moon goddess. Gods and goddesses of every supernatural you can think of. Wolves, vampires, fairies, dragons, bears, witches, you name it, they live there, Jasper said. Or so the story entails, Kendrick added. The point is, the story Lizzy used to tell us when we were growing up was one of many she told, but the one about the Lunar Kingdom never seemed to end. Every week, she had something new to tell us about it, and it was a story that we all liked to hear. Milan, and even Tasha loved to hear it the most, Jason said. It was mostly because she made the stories romantic, Jasper interjected. True, but it also had a lot of drama and fighting, and they were all around good stories, Kendrick said, emphasizing the word stories. Okay. I still don't get what this has to do with the girls, I replied, giving them looks of utter confusion. The point is, in these stories, Lizzy always said something about the gods and goddesses giving birth to their own children and raising those children themselves. So not only do the gods and goddesses of our kind gift us our own pups, as well as any other supernatural offspring, but they also bless themselves. These children are supposed to be powerful, Jasper told me. And stories say that if anyone were to ever find the lunar kingdom, it could be devastating to all of the supernatural world, Jason concluded. Okay, yeah, that just sounds like some made-up fairy tale, I replied. See, even she thinks it's bullsh, Kendrick said pointing at me. There's only one way to find out, Jasper replied. We all looked at him. Who do we know that's immortal and would have more knowledge of such a place? Wait, you want to ask Lorenzo? Jason said, and Jasper nodded his head. Ken, go get him. Kendrick got up and went to go find William. I quickly mind-linked Jasper. Jasper, you can't ask him. You're going to blow his secret. Sarin, this is important. If the lunar kingdom does exist, then we need to know. And what if it doesn't? You're going to out William as the first primordial in existence. You're going to put a target on his back. Relax, Tink, it's not like he can die. That's not the point. Seriously, what are you two arguing about? Jason asked, interrupting my mind link with Jasper. Before either one of us could respond, Kendrick came back with William. Alpha, what is going on? He asked Jasper. Please, sit, there's something we need to discuss, Jasper said respectfully. Is there something wrong? He asked as he sat where Kendrick was originally sitting. Lorenzo, I think it's time you came clean about who you really are, Jasper said to him point blank. Excuse me. It's important, and it has to do with Alexa and Xandra potentially being descendants of the moon goddess. William looked at me disapprovingly. Don't look at me, I didn't have a choice but to tell him, I said defensively. Alpha, is this necessary? It is, and you can trust these men. You know that. William looked at Kendrick and Jason, and then at Jasper and me. I glared at Jasper for putting William in this kind of position, but to my surprise, William actually agreed. Very well. What? I looked at him completely shocked. Sarin, it's okay. I think it's time anyway. I can't keep up this charade for much longer. There is no reason for me to keep up the double identity anymore, he said to me and pat my shoulder with assurance. Beta, Gamma, my name is not Lorenzo Rossi. My real name is William. William Curvino, I am. You're the first primordial to ever exist. Kendrick shouted. What? Jason exclaimed. Yes, I am. I am the original, and Sarin is my direct descendant. What? Kendrick responded in shock. Jasper, you knew. And you didn't tell us. I promised to keep it secret, but given what we know about Alexa and Xandra, this was necessary, Jasper replied apologetically. I still wasn't happy with how things were coming to light, but it was too late now. Beta, Gamma, now that you know who I am, I would appreciate it if you kept this yourself for the time being. As much I don't mind people knowing, trying to explain to a pack of over 800 werewolves that I'm over 7,000 years old would be kind of hard. 7,000. Jason shouted at the top of his lungs. Yeah, dude. This guy was alive in like 5000 BC or some sh.t like that. Kendrick replied. We're not here to talk about his age. Jasper snapped, getting their attention back. But, it is why we need his help. What is this about? William asked calmly. William, I got his attention, does the lunar kingdom exist? I asked carefully. His body tensed and his face hardened. William. He didn't say anything and just stared at me blankly. William. Jasper waved his hand in his face. William. I shouted and shoved him in his seat. Hey? What? What did you say? He replied. I asked you if the lunar kingdom exists. I repeated and he tensed again. After a moment of him just staring at me and breathing heavily, he finally said something. Where did you hear about the lunar kingdom? He asked in return. His tone was suspicious, and it almost seemed as if he was scared that we knew about this. My mom used to tell us stories about it when we were growing up, Kendrick answered. And how would your mother know about it? William asked him. I honestly have no clue. William, why does it matter where or who we heard it from? I asked. He bit his bottom lip and closed his eyes. Because, only those who were born in the lunar kingdom know about its existence, he answered. All of us were taken aback by what he said. Jasper, didn't you say that only those born from the gods and goddesses live there? I asked to make sure I was remembering what he said correctly. Jasper nodded and his facial expression was the same one we all had. Wait, what? Kendrick said. Beta, I believe your mother may have been a descendant of a higher power, more specifically, the moon goddess. Kendrick's eyes were about to pop out of his head. And if Alexa and Xandra are descendants of the moon goddess as well, then it is possible that you are related. Chapter 10. Kendrick's POV. Ken. Babe? Hey, you okay? Kendrick. I heard someone shout at me. I looked up and saw Melody holding Leanne in bed, feeding her a bottle. Hey? I'm sorry, Angel, what did you say? Where is your head at? She asked. I'm sorry, the meeting with your brother, it was informative, I answered as I plopped down next to her. I looked over at Leanne who was drinking her bottle and I instantly smiled. Just seeing this beautiful raven-haired beauty before my eyes made everything better. She was definitely a looker, and I knew that one day I would be scaring away all of the male wolves that tried to come into her life. Ken, what's wrong? Melody asked me. I looked up at her and back down at Leanne now fast asleep. Angel, we need to have a chat with my father. Will you get Becky to watch her? Okay. Melody's eyes clouded over as she mind-linked Leanne's nanny and within a few minutes she arrived. Our baby girl was still passed out from her bottle, so it would be easy for Becky to watch her while we went to hunt down my dad. Given the time, he was probably fishing at the lake with Ronan and Felix. Something told me that Ronan also knew my mom's secret. When we got to the dock, we found my dad, Ronan, and Felix drinking beer and laughing about the good old days, and we walked straight up to them. Seriously? It's the middle of winter, and you three are out here fishing, again? Melody asked as she stood behind them. They stood from their foldable chairs and smiled at us. Pumpkin, we're all officially retired now. Your mother and Zoe watch the grandkids while we enjoy our retirement. It doesn't matter what season of the year it is, this lake is full of BA.SS and trout, and they survive in the cold water just fine. Was all she replied. I smirked at her. Melody did not see the appeal in fishing. Jasper, Jason, and I used to come with our dads when we were younger, and it took us about 5 minutes before it became more about drinking and less about the fishing. Son, did you two need something? My dad asked me with a smile. After everything that happened last year, after finally bringing my mom's killer to justice, my dad was finally his old self again. He was the man he was when my mother was alive. The happy-go-lucky yet still very scary Dylan Neslany. Actually, yeah, we do, well, more like I do, I answered him. His smile faded when he saw that I had a conflicted look on my face. "What is it, son?" he asked, putting his hand on my shoulder. "Dad, I'm going to ask you a few questions, and I need you to be honest with me. Can you do that?" "Ken, you know I have no secrets from you or Keaton. Ask me whatever you like." "No secrets, old man? Let's just see about that." "Babe, what is going on?" Melody asked. She was still in the dark about all of this, but she had the right to know. "I'm 95% certain that Jason was telling Milan about everything as it was happening." "Dad, you come from a family of betas, right?" "Of course. For hundreds of years, the Neslini bloodline has been betas to the Blue Lake Pack. Just like the Lexington line has been the Gammas," he answered while pointing to Felix. I looked at Jason's dad and Ronan, and they too were looking at me funny. I rarely asked questions when it came to our bloodline because I never questioned it. The Valencias were alphas, Neslinis were betas, and Lexingtons were gammas. No one questioned that, but I don't think there had ever been a time when a lower-ranked male was mated to a higher-ranked female in this pack. At least not until Melody and I were mated. But hearing that my mother may have been of alpha blood, being mated to Melody, an alpha female, was starting to make sense. "Dad, did Mom have a rank?" I asked. "What?" "Kendrick, of course, she did. She was my mate and my wife. She was the beta." "No, that's not what I'm asking." "I don't understand, son. I'm not asking if Mom was ranked when she became mated to you, I'm asking if she was ranked regardless of you." His eyes widened and he looked straight at Ronan and Felix, and they too looked at me with wide eyes. "Babe, what is going on? Why are you asking if Lizzy was a ranked wolf?" Melody asked me, shaking my arm. "Dad, answer me. Was Mom ranked?" He said nothing again and just stared at me blankly. "Either you answer me, or I'm going to get Sarin out here and have her use her voodoo on you." That finally registered to him, and he glared at me. "Kendrick, why are you asking me this? Does it matter?" I responded, a little irritated. I knew he was already trying to avoid answering me. "Yes, it does. You never once have asked about your mother's bloodline, why are you asking all of a sudden?" "Because I heard something from I mean Lorenzo, and it got me thinking," I answered, trying my hardest not to give away someone else's secret identity. "So, answer my question, Dad. Did Mom have a rank before you two met?" He looked back at Ronan and Felix, and Ronan finally nodded. "Dylan, I think it's time we told our kids the truth," he said to him. "Daddy!" Melody said to him in shock. "Pumpkin, gather your brother and the others, and your mothers into the conference room. You all need to hear this. Go, Angel." Melody nodded and headed back to the castle. I looked back at my father and the two men who have been uncles to me my entire life, and now one was my father-in-law. I'm already certain that they were going to confirm what Jasper, Jason, Sarin, and I just heard from William. "Dad, I'm going to get Keaton," I told him, and he only nodded. I went to Keaton's room and tried to think of how he would react to what our dad had to say about Mom. My mom was the light of our lives. She was that special someone you couldn't help but love. That description was probably biased since I was her son, her firstborn son, but she really was so loved. Even though Grace was the Luna, sometimes I felt that pack members favored my mom over her. Not to say that Grace was a bad Luna, she was definitely a bada.ss Luna, but she didn't have the suave that my mom did. Grace ordered people around, and she was respected, loved, and feared. My mom was just straight up loved. People listened to her not because she was ranked, but because they wanted to please her. Almost the same way pack members behaved for Sarin. Sarin was respected, she was feared, and she was loved, just like Grace. But she also had that suave that my mom had. Keaton was a straight-up mama's boy. When mom died, Keaton wasn't himself. He rebelled against our dad. That's when he really started to sleep around and play with girls' heartstrings. He started to skip school, party, and drink all the time. Then the whole SHT with Sarin went down. Mom dying really messed him up, but finding his mate put him back on the straight and narrow. When I got to his room, I tried to open the door and found it locked, and he only locked his door nowadays when he and Irene were getting down and dirty. I tried to mind link him, but I was immediately met with a block. I knocked on his door several times before he finally opened it, and ached. "Put on some clothes, you little SHT. I roared at him. "Ken, you have 3 seconds to tell me why you're disrupting my happy moments with Irene before I kick you. Drop the attitude, bro, I enunciate. Get dressed and bring Irene with you. Meet in the conference room in 2 minutes. Why? It's about mom." "Okay, Dad, you have us all here, what's going on?" Jasper asked. I looked around the conference room and all ranked members, past and present were, well, present. A little while ago, Kendrick and Melody came to us at the dock, and asked a question that I never thought would ever be asked, my dad said, standing to his feet. "Dad, what the hell is going on?" Keaton asked impatiently. "I'm going to tell you, son," he replied. Keaton looked at me confused and I nodded once to let him know to just wait. Keaton had the tendency of getting worked up anytime anyone mentioned our mom, so he was very attentive. My dad took a deep breath and was clearly deep in thought. "Dylan," he opened his eyes and looked at Grace. "It's okay," she reassured him. That alone only proved that Grace knew the truth as well. "So, this is actually happening?" Zoe asked and all of our parents just nodded. "Kendrick, Keaton, the two of you are not just betas," my dad said to us with a heavy sigh. "What? Dad, what the hell are you talking about?" Keaton asked. Keaton let him finish, I told him, and he shut up again. "Kendrick, when you asked me if your mother was a ranked wolf before we met, the answer is yes," he took a deep breath and continued, "your mother was actually an alpha and a very powerful one at that." I furrowed my brows at his confirmation of what William told us earlier, and I looked at Keaton whose eyes were popping out of his head. "Kendrick, when we found out that you were mated to Melody last year, we weren't all that shocked. It's rare for a ranked male to be mated to a higher ranked female, but given your mother's bloodline, it wasn't surprising." "So, you and Keaton are actually alphas by blood too," Jasper said. I looked over at him and he had a smirk on his face. "Just so we're clear, don't even try to challenge me," he said as a joke. "Or what?" I challenged playfully. "Or I'll sick Sarin on you." "What? Oh, come on," I whined, making the room laugh and snicker. That alone eased the tension in the room. "Dad, can you go into a little more detail?" Keaton asked once the room settled down a bit. "What do you mean that mom was a powerful alpha?" "Son, your mom, he paused and smiled, she was a very special kind of wolf, but she never wanted that to define who she was. When she finally told me the truth about her lineage, to say that I was blessed was an understatement," he smiled and looked over at Jasper. "If you think your mate is special, I doubt she compares to my Lizzy." "Let's agree to disagree, Uncle Dylan," Jasper responded and looked over at Sarin with literal hearts in his eyes. Dad, I got his attention, and he nodded his head. Boys, your mom was a literal blessing from the moon goddess herself, he told us. Keaton just lifted his brow. Dad, all of our mates are blessings from the moon goddess. Your mother was different, Keaton. Okay? How? Because your mother was born from the moon goddess. Chapter 11. Kendrick's POV. Melody, Irene, and Keaton gasped at my father's words and looked at each other. They looked around the room and saw that no one else was alarmed by the news. Wait, why are we the only three who are surprised right now? Irene asked. Jason told me a little while ago, Milan admitted. The rest of us knew as of earlier, but hearing Dylan say it in his own words only confirms what we heard, Sarin answered. Heard from who? Keaton asked. Lorenzo, Jasper replied. How does he know Mom was special? He didn't, at first, I answered him. He looked over at me in confusion. Believe it or not, this has to do with Alexa and Xandra, I said to everyone in the room. What does your mother have to do with those two girls? Zoe asked. I can answer that one, Sarin said, putting her hand up. We all gave her a smile because she looked so innocent doing that. Sarin, sweetheart, what do you know? Ronan asked. Well, I wasn't supposed to say anything, but now that this information is tied to Lizzy, I don't really have a choice, she said and took a deep breath. Dr. Andrews sent out blood samples of the girls to Dr. Marsh. Dr. Marsh? Gavin's mother, my dad asked, looking over at Keaton and me. I nodded my head. Yes, well, given her medical background, she ran some tests, and she also found that the girls are also possibly direct descendants of the moon goddess, like Lizzy. What? Keaton and my dad responded simultaneously. Wait, I don't understand, how do those girls circle all the way back to Lizzy? Grace asked. Ironically, it has to do with that bedtime story she used to tell all of us when we were younger, Jason answered. You know, the one about the lunar kingdom. Care to elaborate? Melody asked. What does a mythical kingdom have to do with any of this? She looked over at Jasper, the lunar kingdom is real. What? It's real, Angel. Lorenzo confirmed it, I told her and held her hand. I don't. According to Lorenzo, only those born from the lunar kingdom know about it, and given that my mom told us so many intricate and elaborate stories, we've come to believe that my mother was born there. Since the only wolf goddess is the moon goddess, and my mom was a pure-blooded wolf, it makes sense that she was born from the moon goddess. Melody completed my statement and I just nodded. Wait, if Mom was born from the moon goddess, which I'm still having trouble believing, how the hell did she end up with you, Dad? Beta? Keaton asked. I asked her the very same thing when she finally told me the truth, our dad answered. Which was when? I asked. When she found out she was pregnant with you, he said directly to me. According to your mother, when a wolf is born in the lunar kingdom, they are born immortal, and they will remain immortal as long as they stay there and never leave. Why does this sound like Greek mythology? Milan asked, earning her a smack from Grace. Ow, I'm pregnant, Auntie. I hit your arm, you'll live. Now hush, she snapped. Milan sulked knowing she would never win against Grace. Continue, Dylan. Thank you, Grace. Where was I? Oh, yes, immortality. When a supernatural born in the kingdom decides that they don't want to live there anymore, their god or goddess looks for a mate for them. You mean here on Earth? Sarin asked, and Grace smacked her arm too. What was that for? You kids need to stop disrupting Dylan. Do you want to know the truth or not? Sorry, we all apologized. The next one to interrupt is smacked upside the head. Got it? Yes, ma'am, we all answered in unison. Good, she nodded and looked at my dad to continue. At this point, Ronan had puppy dog eyes while he looked at Grace. Almost 30 years together, and he was still head over heels in love with her as if they just met. The mate bond is a powerful, powerful thing. Where do you kids think the kingdom is located? Space, my dad asked us. We all shrugged and he just laughed. Kids, the kingdom is here on Earth. It's not just some extraterrestrial place. It's just hidden by a lot of magic, both light and dark. That's why it's impossible to find. No one knows exactly where it is located. Not even your mother knew after she left. The location was hidden from her as soon as she was released. We all made O's with our mouths. Okay, so then what happened? Keaton asked. Nothing much after that. The moon goddess was gracious enough to choose me for your mother, and she accepted. Your mother was reborn to a mortal Alpha and his Luna, she was raised by them as her mortal parents, and we found each other during an Alpha meeting. Your grandfather was Beta at the time, and I was 20 with no mate getting ready to take over. Your mother was 2 years younger than me, and when she came with her father to this Alpha meeting here at Blue Lake, one look was it all took. Just like with any other mate. Wait, traveling Alphas don't bring their kids to Alpha meetings, let alone their daughters, Jasper said. True son, but remember, Lizzy was different, Ronan replied. Mom knew you were here at Blue Lake, and she knew you were her mate, I said, and my dad nodded. Your mother told me that when she turned 18, she was given back her memories of her life at the Lunar Kingdom, which is why she told you kids all of those stories. Because that was her life before she was reborn mortal. We nodded our heads as we absorbed all of the information. It was all true. My mother was an Alpha by blood because she was directly born from the moon goddess. Wait, Irene said, getting the room's attention. What does that make Alexa and Xandra? What do you mean, babe? Keaton asked her. If they're also born from the moon goddess, and your mother was born from her, wouldn't that make you guys their nephews? Keaton and I looked at each other and then at our dad. No, Irene, it doesn't work that way, he said to her. When children of the gods and goddesses are reborn, they're given new blood. It's still mixed with the blood of their god or goddess, for instance like Alexa and Xandra. To know who they are and how special they are, but they're only related by sharing that special DNA. Everything else about their DNA would be off. They would share less than 10%, he explained to us, and we all nodded. Wait, Dylan, you said that Lizzy got her memories of the Lunar Kingdom back when she turned 18. Sarin asked and my dad nodded. Tink, what's wrong? Jasper asked her. Dylan, did Lizzy tell you what would happen if someone ever found the Lunar Kingdom? Sarin asked curiously. She did. She said that intruders are killed on sight. What if someone got in and out successfully? Luna, why are you asking me this? Because, Alexa and Xandra have no recollection of the Lunar Kingdom, or who their parents are. If they were truly born there, they should have regained memories of their previous lives back when they became of age. But they didn't, and I know for a fact that they're telling the truth. Hold on, Jason said. What's wrong? Milan asked him. One of the stories that Aunt Lizzy told us, there was one where she talked about the kingdom being attacked, and the bad guys taking some kind of treasure out of the kingdom. He racked his brain for a minute. What was the story? He screamed out loud and grabbed his hair trying to figure it out. Oh, I remember now, he exclaimed. Well, don't keep us waiting in anticipation, spill it. Milan hollered at him. She said that pirates crashed into a party or celebration of some sort uninvited. The scary part, these were mortal pirates who had somehow found the location of the kingdom and came through the gates. Because the gods and goddesses were immortal and powerful, they defended the kingdom. But what the gods and goddesses didn't realize was the pirates only served as a decoy. The true enemy was someone from the inside who had given away the secret location, and in doing so, the enemy combatants stole some kind of treasure from the kingdom. No one knew until it was too late. He stopped talking and looked at all of us. That's it! We all shouted. Jason, you are the worst storyteller of all time, Zoe said to him. Please don't ever try to freestyle story time with my grandchildren. You will ruin their childhood with that idiocy. Mom? I'm your son. Jason shouted at her. I know, and that's why I can tell you how it is. Suck it up, B.Uttercup. He grumbled under his breath and we all laughed at him. No, but seriously, is that all, man? I asked him and he nodded. Mom was already here with us. We were all kids between 5 and 10 years old, and Keaton was barely an infant. How would she know something like that? Because even though she was here, she was still connected to the kingdom. Such is the case for anyone from there, my dad answered. At least that's what she told me. Anytime there was a celebration or a war, your mother knew, and she felt all of the emotions. What about Alexa and Xandra, what do they have to do with this? Sarin asked, trying to get everything back on topic. I remember asking Aunt Lizzy what happened to the treasure, and why no one tried to find it. She said that no one was willing to give up their immortality. Plus, the treasure belonged to the wolves, and if they wanted them back, a wolf would have to go get them, but again, no one wanted to. And when I had asked what the treasure was, she said that she didn't know. Again, what does this have to do with the girls? Sarin asked, getting agitated. She obviously really cared about them. I asked why no one wanted to go after the treasure. She said that if someone leaves without being formally released, they're considered rogue. They're also not allowed to get their memories back, for the kingdom's protection. Wait, are you saying that they're considered rogues, like what we do if a pack member leaves without being released or is banished? Jasper asked. I assume that's what Aunt Lizzy meant by that, Jason responded. Hold on, hold on, hold on, Melody said, shaking her hands in the air to get everyone's attention. Jason, are you saying that the girls may have left the kingdom to look for the treasure, but left without permission and have been robbed of their memories? No, I think those girls are the treasure, and because they were kidnapped, they're not being given their memories. We all looked at him like he was crazy. Jason, you're not making any sense, Milan said to him. Babe, Aunt Lizzy never called the treasure it, she said them. What? No, Jace, she meant them, as in the pirates, or whoever took the treasure. That's what I thought at first too, but now that I think about the story as an adult, I seriously think Lizzy knew that it was a set of goddess twins that were kidnapped, and that there's something special. You know, the timeline fits, Jasper chimed in. Given the age Alexa and Xandra are right now, and when Aunt Lizzy told us that story, I wouldn't be surprised if she was telling us that story while it was actually happening, in real time. Everyone stilled at his words. Do you think my mom was telling us all of these stories, good and bad, hoping that we would find the treasure? I asked him and he just shrugged. A moment goes by and suddenly Sarin slammed her hands on the table and jumped to her feet. Dearest, where are you going? Jasper asked her, quickly rising from his seat also. To get answers, and I know where to find them, she said with gritted teeth and ran out of the conference room. We all looked at Jasper and he was just as confused as we were. If there was one thing about Sarin we've all come to accept, was that when she's on a mission, she's on a mission, and no one dared to stop her. I had to admit though, even I needed to know more. These Gemini twins were something else, and something rare. If they were this treasure that was stolen, and my mom told us what was happening play by play, then I owed it to her to figure out what the hell was going on. This was my pack as much as it was Jasper's and Sarin's. This was my home, and my mother was a special and rare wolf that loved all of us unconditionally. She was humble and never once made it known she was practically the highest-ranked wolf in our pack. If Alexa and Xandra were from the Lunar Kingdom and they were wrongfully taken, then we needed to find a way to get them back, or at least help them get back the memories that were stolen from them. Chapter 12. Sarin's POV. I ran out of the conference room like a bat out of hell and immediately went to go find William. He didn't tell us the entire truth, and I knew it from the beginning. The shock of finding out the origin of Kendrick's mother temporarily distracted me, but not right now. Considering William's identity and the fact that he himself was immortal, something told me that he wasn't just the first of our kind, the primordials, but also the god of our kind. I found him with Olivia outside walking around the mazes, and I ran straight up to them fuming. Sarin, what's the matter? Olivia asked, seeing my angry expression. You have 3 seconds to tell me everything you know about the Lunar Kingdom, or I swear we are going to have problems, I said directly to him. My attitude was one thing he could never tolerate, and his eyes immediately flashed black in anger at my disrespect. Sarin, you better have a good reason for threatening me. The kingdom's stolen treasure, what do you know about it? His eyes flashed back and I sensed he was shocked at my question. Answer me. I pressed again. Sarin. How? Lizzy, she used to tell everyone stories when they were kids about the kingdom. In one of her stories, she talked about the kingdom being overrun by pirates and that someone from the kingdom gave away the location of it. But the attack was a decoy and that someone stole the treasure of the wolves, but no one was willing to go after them. They couldn't. If anyone left without being released they would never get their memories of the kingdom back because they would be considered rogues. Yeah, we got that already. What we don't get is why Jason seems to think that the them Lizzy mentions in her story is about the treasure and not the thieves. Lizzy said, no one would go after them, I replied and again used my fingers as quotations. I watched as he looked at Olivia and her eyes were closed, her face stoic. She knew as well, but she too wasn't saying a thing. Sarin, I don't think Jason, I raised my hand to stop him. Do not even think about trying to convince me that Jason doesn't know what he's talking about. As of right now, I know for a fact that you are lying and withholding vital information. Either you tell me the truth, or I will beat it out of you. Sarin, he growled at me, and I growled right back. This is my pack, and 2 girls that I have sworn to protect may be in grave danger because of something you're not telling us. I yelled in his face. I want the truth. And I want it now. I roared at him in my Luna voice, making him jump. I rarely ever used my Luna voice on anyone, but the information he was withholding from us was important. I watched as he fought his anger at the blatant disrespect I was showing, but he knew that even though he was an alpha by blood, he gave up that right long ago. "Olivia, put a shield around us," he told her, and so she did. The second we were behind the shield, William looked at me and glared. "Don't give me that look. Ever since you came into my life, all you've done is hide things from me, only for me to find out later. Both of you have. That SHT is what almost cost me my mate and my son's father, and I told you that if I ever had to find out another secret the long way again, I would not be happy about it. Now, tell me the truth for once in your life, William." He grumbled under his breath as he fought to suppress his rage. I could honestly care less that I pissed him off because I was beyond pissed off myself. He was going to feel the wrath of Sarin. "Fine," he finally said, looking me dead in the eyes. "It is true, the treasure stolen from the kingdom was in fact a set of twins. At least, that is what I was told after I saw what happened." "What do you mean by what you saw?" I asked him. "Like Lizzy, I too will receive visions of the lunar kingdom, both good and bad, however, it is not because of the same reason that Lizzy got them. She got them because she was born there, and after she was given back her memories when she became of age, it was a way she could keep in touch with her previous life when she lived there. What about you?" "I get the visions because I am a guardian of the kingdom." "What?" I exclaimed. "What spot do you mean that you're a guardian? I'm not a god, not like the moon goddess or the higher powers that reside in the kingdom. I was created by them, as you were. Their lives have no recorded beginnings, and they will have no end unless they were to be released to live amongst us. However, because I was the first of our kind, and have the power of immortality, they turned to me to guard the kingdom from the outside." "If you were meant to guard the kingdom, then how did someone get in and kidnap a set of twins?" "Because at the time of the attack, I was not at my post. I was called away by one of the gods, and to this day, I believe that he is the reason why the kingdom was attacked. The timing was too conspicuous, and as soon as I was called away, SHT hit the fan, as you young ones say." "Lorenzo," Olivia touched his arm when she could see that he seemed upset. "Do not blame yourself. If you were played by someone, it is not your fault." "But it is," he replied as he closed his eyes. "With my powers, I should have been able to see that I was being played, but I didn't. I was too blinded by trust, and I left my post." "Wait, I thought you were off on some island around this time," I said to him. "This happened before. After the attack and the kidnapping, I resigned as the kingdom's guardian and went to Vanuatu. A few years later is when I got the premonition of your pack, and well, you know everything else from that point. You said that the treasure was a set of twins that belonged to the wolves." "Yes. Alexa and Xandra." "What? Alexa and Xandra? They're the treasure!" I shouted at him. He was taken aback and furrowed his brows. "What are you talking about, Sarin?" Olivia asked. "Alexa and Xandra's blood comes from alpha blood, and further tests found that they are descendants of the moon goddess," I explained to them, and Olivia gasped. William squinted his eyes in disbelief. "William, who is the god that called you away from your post?" "It doesn't matter." "What? What do you mean it doesn't?" "Sarin. It doesn't matter because he's dead." "What? But how can a god? He was banished from the kingdom, and I was tasked with killing him. Afterward, I left the kingdom." "Do you know who kidnapped the twins?" "No, but now I'm determined to find out." "How would the girls live after they were taken?" I asked. "Normally, they would have to be reborn, and they more than likely were." "I don't understand." Even though they were infants when they were taken, whoever took them may have already had a place for them to be reborn. Wait, you're not saying that an Alpha and Luna willingly participated in this reincarnation, are you? I honestly can't say for sure, but it would make the most sense. I grabbed my hair and shook my head at just how enged up that sounded. I looked up at him and lifted a brow. Reading my thoughts, he immediately shook his head at me. No, Sarin, I will not reach out to them. I can't. You can't or you won't. I can't. Even if the kingdom is always in the same place, the gate to the kingdom is not. It is moved every few minutes, and only those who have been granted access can find it. I lost that access the day I resigned as guardian of the gates. So, there's no way you can find it. None whatsoever. I glared at him a moment, and for once, he was actually telling the truth. We need to figure out which Alpha and Luna gave birth to the girls when they were reincarnated. Since they were infants when they were taken from the kingdom, they're not going to have any memories to be given back, and I think that's why no one ever bothered to go after them or save them. There was literally no risk of them giving away the location of the kingdom when they got older. I agree that they may pose no risk to the kingdom's location, but it doesn't mean that they're still not valuable, William replied, and I nodded my head. I exhaled a deep sigh. I finally understood why Alexa and Xandra were so special to these traffickers. I knew now more than ever that whoever had them, would not rest until he got them back. I have to tell the others. Sarin, you can't. William shouted at me. I'm not going to hide this important information from everyone. Especially Jasper. I shouted back. Do you understand that these girls' lives are in serious peril and now we at least have enough information to know why? God, for once in your life William, stop thinking about yourself and your past. This isn't about you. This is about two innocent wolves that were taken from their home and were raised in cages like they were animals. Not only that, but these traffickers will also stop at nothing to get them back given how special they are. I yelled at him. Suddenly, something dawned on me. Oh my God, that's why you came back from your world tour. The moment you had our premonition you knew who they were, or at least had an idea. That's why you were so eager to meet them. William lowered his head and didn't even deny it. You know, I would think that after 2 years of knowing each other and the fact that we're each other's only living relative, aside from my son, you would respect me enough to tell me these things when they first come up. But I guess that's too much to ask. Sarin. Don't. You obviously don't care about me as much as I thought you did. You and Olivia are free to leave Blue Lake whenever you please. I won't ask you to be part of the pack because you don't know what being part of a pack even means. Let alone being part of a family. I turned my heel and walked out of the force field and back to the castle. I didn't have time to wallow in his pity party. I had a pack to run, and 2 innocent lives to keep safe. If William wasn't going to help me figure out where the kingdom was or get the girls back there before they were found by the traffickers, then I was going to do it myself. After cooling off, I went to Jasper's office to fill him in on what William told me, but when I got to his office upstairs, he wasn't there. I lifted an eyebrow in confusion because he has been glued to this place ever since he found out the next Alpha's meeting was being hosted at our pack. I quickly mind-linked him to see where he was. Jasper? Hey, Tink, what's up? Where are you? I'm at your office, but you are nowhere to be found. Sorry baby, I'm in our room. Oh, okay. I shut off the link and made my way to our room where I was surprised to see Jasper dressed in a polo, clean jeans, and his hair was SL.ed back. Going somewhere? I asked. Yes, but you are coming with me. Hey! Wear something comfy but nice, I'm taking you on a lunch date before T gets really busy with the upcoming Alphas meeting. With everything that's been going on the last couple of weeks, I think you and I need some time together. Wow, really? Yup. I squealed in excitement since it's been a while since Jasper took me out on a date that didn't include Sam. I already saw that his diaper bag was missing, which only meant that Grace and Ronan had him. I quickly changed into a floral top, skinny jeans with a brown belt and some knee-high boots that Milan bought me for my birthday. After 11 years, I finally had a birthday party, and it was the best thing ever. The only thing that could beat it was alone time with Jasper. This date was going to be so romantic. I don't know how Jasper's definition of a date got lost in translation, but sitting in his truck, eating takeout diner food at the park was not my idea of a romantic date. I was picking at my food, completely disappointed. I stared at Jasper as he stuffed his face, but he didn't notice anything was amiss because all he did was glance at me, smiled big, and went back to his food. After another minute or so of me not eating, Jasper finally noticed. "Dearest, is everything okay?" he asked with his mouth full. "Nothing, the food is great, I was just expecting something a little more." A little more what? I thought you liked Cornerstone Barrel. I love Cornerstone Barrel, their skillets are great, but when you said we'd be going on a date, I was expecting it to be a little more romantic. How is this not romantic? We have great food, music to fit the mood, he said as he turned on his radio to his default music of choice, which was heavy metal, and we're at the park with an amazing view of the city. I scoffed and turned off the music. Okay, 1. Heavy metal music is not romantic, and 2. I paused when something outside of his window caught my attention. I think we're being robbed. What? Jasper turned around and sure enough, some crazy human pointed a gun at Jasper's head. "Wallet, keys, and give me your purse, lady," he demanded, but instead of Jasper doing as he said, he held up his hand to him and turned his attention back to me. "Define a romantic date for me, dearest, because I thought I was doing all right here for a second." "Jasper, I don't think this is the time for that," I said while my eyes darted back and forth between the gun pointed at the back of his head and his face. "Hey, pretty boy! Did you not hear me?" the gunman shouted. "Hold on," Jasper said to him without giving him any eye contact. "Sarin, seriously, define your idea of a romantic date." I was in shock and couldn't answer him because this seriously was not the best time for this. "Jasper. What? A crazy man is pointing a gun at your head." Jasper grunted and turned his attention back to the gunman. "Do as I say, or your girlfriend is going to watch you bleed out." "You sure you want to do this?" Jasper asked him. The man shoved the gun up to Jasper's forehead and I heard it make a clicking sound. Eat my L.P.S. and pursed them together as Jasper stabbed his food with the fork and put the container down. This guy chose the wrong couple to rob. Chapter 13. Jasper's POV. After thoroughly beating the SHT out of the moron who tried to carjack us, I tied him up, threw him into the bed of my truck, and drove him down to the police station downtown. I obviously had to restrain myself, so I didn't kill him with my werewolf strength. "Stay in the truck, I'll be right back," I told Sarin, who only rolled her eyes at me in response. I dragged the doofus human through the front door and slammed him on top of the reception counter as he was screaming for help. "Well, looks like someone is having a bad day," an officer said to him. "Mr. Valencia, to what do we owe the pleasure? This IT tried to carjack my girlfriend and me at gunpoint." "Well, I would say he hit the jackpot, however, it appears he underestimated you. You could say that again. This guy is crazy. He ripped out my facial piercings and broke my hand. Mr. Valencia, did you keep the piercings? The officer asked. I put them in his pocket, along with the gun he used. Perfect, we'll bag and tag those into evidence, the officer said with a smile. Let me take this scum off your hands. Are you serious? This guy assaulted me. Actually, he was simply exercising his right to self-defense. Let's go. I smirked and left the station. When I got back to the truck, I could see that Sarin was disappointed. Tink, talk to me, I said when I closed the door and settled in. I'm fine. Let's just go home, it's an hour drive. I was going to protest, but I knew better than to pressure her into talking when she was upset. The drive home was very uncomfortable, and I didn't know what was wrong. I thought it was because of the gunman, but if we're being honest here, I knew it was because of me. By the time we got back to the territory and pulled up to the castle, Sarin didn't even wait for me to shut off the car. She unlocked the door and got out without saying a word. She slammed the door and, thankfully, didn't break the window this time. I knew then that I messed up royally with this date thing. All I wanted was to get us out of the castle and away from the drama before the Alpha's meeting consumed most of my time for the next few days. But I guess my intentions weren't in the right place. When I went through the front door of the castle, I was met with a slap to the back of the head. What spot? I held my head and turned around to see my mother with an exasperated expression. You took your mate to eat takeout food in a styrofoam container inside of your truck at the park, she asked in a mocking tone as she placed her hands on her H.P.S. I guess she already told you. Well, of course she did. You asked me to watch Sam because you wanted to take Sarin out on a much-needed date, and I expected it to be something at least somewhat romantic. Like at an actual restaurant with waiters, fine dining, and wine, she exclaimed and slapped my shoulder as hard as she could. I felt her disappointment, literally. I thought getting her out of the castle was, before I could even finish stating my defense, my mother slapped my shoulder again. Where did your father go wrong with you? Since when have you seen your father take me to a dive restaurant for takeout food and then have me eat inside of his car? Ow, geez, okay, Mom, I'm sorry. Do not apologize to me, Jasper Valencia, you go apologize to your girlfriend who you've completely upset because she expected the same thing. You're even more clueless than Kendrick. Ouch. That was a low blow, even for my mother. I couldn't even get a word out before she walked away while still cussing me out and shaking her head in disapproval. If there was anything I couldn't stand, it was when I got compared to Kendrick. I rolled my eyes and made my way upstairs. I got to our room, but when I opened the door Sarin wasn't in there, so I followed her scent and it led me to her office where the door was ajar. I was about to go in but paused when I heard several voices. What? He took you where? I heard a few voices ask in unison. He took me to eat in his truck at the park with takeout food from Cornerstone Barrel, Sarin answered. Her voice was filled with disappointment and annoyance and I knew that I definitely messed up big time. The worst part? When I was trying to explain to him how SHTTY this so-called date was, we were held at gunpoint by a crazy human trying to rob us. What? I heard the voices all exclaim at once. My brother is such a it. You would think that after 2 years he would know what it means to be romantic and how to take you on a date. Melody said. I don't know if it's because Victor has been in love before we ended up as mates, but even he takes me out on walks during the sunset and makes dinner for me at home, I heard Diana mention. If we're being honest here, Jasper has never been the romantic type, said Milan. I mean, seriously, since when has Jasper ever taken a girl out on a date? Even when he wasn't sleeping around and actually dated in the past. He never once was romantic with his girlfriends. I thought it was because my brother didn't care. No, I think it's because he literally has no idea how to be a boyfriend. The loving, caring, and romantic type. I mean, you remember what happened. When Sarin first came here, when she was ready to mate and he just completely disregarded it because he was too busy playing video games. Wait, what? Diana replied. I hung my head remembering that night. Hey? When was this? Was I home yet? Melody asked. You weren't, Milan answered and then proceeded to tell all of the girls about my idiocy. When she was done, my sister was practically screaming about how stupid I was, and Diana was mocking me asking if I was even a man. I unknowingly growled and heard all of them gasp. Jasper? Are you eavesdropping on us? I heard Sarin scream. It's not eavesdropping when I can hear you girls from 3 doors away, I replied smoothly as I came into her office. Next time, make sure the door is closed and locked if you're going to talk behind my back, girls. Diana. Sarin shouted at her. Oops. Ladies, will you give Sarin and me some privacy, please? They all got up and left, but not before each one gave me head shakes and judgmental looks. When the door closed, I turned back to face Sarin, who had her arms crossed. Seriously? What? The first thing you do when we get home is gossip. Isn't that what friends are for? Melody is my sister-in-law, Milan is one of my best friends, and Diana is practically my illegitimate twin. If I can't voice my frustrations to them, then who am I supposed to voice them to? Me. The person you're having frustrations about. When I said that, she glared at me and just lifted an eyebrow. What? You really are clueless, she shouted, and I was so lost at that point. Jasper, girls never express their frustrations about their mate, boyfriend, or husbands directly to them before expressing them to their female companions. I grew up in slavery and I still know what girl code is. Girl code. Oh my goddess, she grunted, clearly getting even more frustrated with me. Jasper, girls have a code too. Just like guys do. I'm sure you, Ken, and Jason have had this bro code thing going on since you were pups, right? I just nodded my head. Well, girls do it too. I know that, but that doesn't mean that you just... Don't even go there, she interrupted me. That's exactly what girl code means. We go to our female companions first, and for everything. Tink, our relationship is none of their business. Are you telling me that you're not going to go to Ken and Jace right after this and go whine and complain that I'm being difficult or unreasonable? She asked mockingly and raised her brows, challenging me to answer that. Well, it's a rhetorical question. You're not supposed to actually answer. I wanted to say something, but she held her hand up to me. Any other person and I would be fuming at the disrespect, but this was Sarin, and she was obviously pissed off at me. Ugh, you're hopeless, I'm going out back to blow something up before I throw you into the wall, she shrieked as she walked past me without even looking in my direction. I stood in the middle of her office completely dumbfounded. I decided that I would indeed go find Kendrick and Jason. Ha 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 ha. I stood in the recreation room as Kendrick, Jason, and Victor all were laughing and rolling on the floor. Quit laughing, you! I shouted at them, but that only made them laugh even more. I'm sorry, brother, but what spot were you thinking? Kendrick said, wiping away the tears that had formed from how hard he was laughing. Seriously, Alpha, even I know better than to talk back to a pissed-off woman while she is venting, Victor said, sitting up and catching his breath. Jace, come on, help me out here, I begged him. I'm sorry, Jasper, but I have to agree with Ken and Vic. You screwed up. Not just with that sorry excuse of a date, but arguing with Sarin while she was in the middle of venting to her confidants. I was trying to understand why I was being treated like the villain. Why is that so wrong? I asked, legitimately confused. Dude, I knew that would happen one day, Kendrick said, standing to his feet finally. Did I not call it, Jace? Did I not say that Jasper's lack of knowledge on how to be romantic would one day get him stuck in the doghouse with his mate? You called it, Ken, you called it a long time ago, Jason replied and sighed deeply while shaking his head at me. You made a bet on me? I asked, annoyed. No, man, we're not Milan. We don't make bets on everything like she does, and do not tell her I said that. She has a temper as it is, it's even worse now that she's pregnant with twins and halfway through her pregnancy, Jason replied. Jasper, you were never the romantic type growing up, and yet all the girls still wanted you. But that's how we knew they were just easy and wanted to get inged by the alpha. They didn't want to date you. And the unlucky few that did, actually complained that you were a SHTTY boyfriend, Kendrick said, making Victor snicker. I growled at him and he cleared his throat. Sorry, Alpha. Don't apologize, Vic, it's true. Jasper here doesn't know the first thing about being a boyfriend, Jason said to him and looked at me with a matter-of-fact expression. I furrowed my brows, taking offense to what he just said. Don't give me that look, man, you know it too, you just don't want to admit it. You're practically perfect at everything you do. You're a great fighter, you run a multi-million-dollar company, you run a pack of werewolves that is over 800 strong, close to 900 now, you're smart, you got good grades while in school, and you're efficient. However, you suck at being a boyfriend. What was I supposed to do? Let the girls keep talking SHT about me? Yes. All three of them shouted at me, loud and clear. With no one willing to take my side, it was clear that I had completely lost this argument and now had to figure out a way to make it up to Sarin. Unfortunately, I had no idea how I was going to do that. Chapter 14. Alexa's POV. Xandra and I were in our room playing around with the clothes given to us and seeing what we liked. It was pretty clear that we definitely had different tastes in clothing now that we actually owned some. I was more into the pants and casual shirts while Xandra geared more towards the shirts with buttons and flowers, skirts, and dresses. She also preferred shoes where her toes were visible while I gravitated towards tennis shoes and boots. Can you believe it, Alexa? She asked me as she spun around in her new clothes. I mean, we actually have clothes, shoes, and even a place to live. I know, it's been over 2 weeks, Xandra, I laughed at her. I know. But still, this feels like a dream. It's not, I reassured her. Xandra was about to say something when all of a sudden we heard a loud noise from outside. What was that? Xandra asked, and we both rushed to the only window in the room, which was between our beds. We were surprised to see Sarin tearing apart trees. What the? Was all that we could get out as we looked at each other and then immediately ran out of the room. We remembered to close the door behind us, and we went to go find her. On our way, we ran into Owen. Whoa girls, where's the fire? Sarin, she's doing something crazy outside. I shouted and ran past him. We heard him follow us not too long after, and when we made it outside to where Sarin was, she had a full-grown tree floating mid-air. Without warning, it was torn into a million pieces right before our eyes. Holy Sh-T, Xandra said out loud. She always had a knack for stating the obvious. Sarin gasped and turned around with wide eyes as she faced us. Alexa? Xandra? Owen? What are you doing out here? Luna, they came rushing out here, and I just happened to follow them, Owen answered. I looked back at Owen, and he didn't seem surprised at what we all witnessed. Sarin, how in the world did you do that just now? I asked her and she gulped. What are you? Shit. You're what? Xandra and I asked in complete shock. After seeing that Sarin could move and do things with her mind, she took us up to her office along with Owen and explained to us what she was. A primordial, she said again. It's a rare and special kind of wolf that has powers. My powers are limitless from what I know. What makes you so special? Xandra asked. I elbowed her when she asked because her tone was rude. What? She asked, shoving me back. Girls don't fight in my office because I can easily keep you two on opposite sides of the room while still maintaining a full-on conversation with both of you, Sarin warned us. We both stopped and looked back at her. And to answer your question, Xandra, I'm special because the bloodline of both of my parents is that of pure-blooded werewolves, and both of my parents were pure-blooded alphas. We only stared at her blankly since we had no clue what any of that meant. Okay, I guess I need to elaborate more, she said with a sigh. Let's start with what a pure-blood is. A pure-blooded werewolf is someone whose bloodline has no other species mixed in it. No human, no vampires, nothing other than werewolf DNA. Both of my parents were pure-blooded wolves. Not only that, but both of my parents were alphas. We nodded at her and she continued to tell us everything about her and her family. She repeated everything about her family having been killed when she was a child and that she ended up as a slave. Even though she had told us all of this before, it wasn't in this much detail. We finally understood why she was so accepting of us. When she explained to us who and what she was, Xandra and I were sitting in the chairs at her desk opposite of her, completely drawn into her life story. If you're so special, why weren't you held in captivity like we were? Xandra asked and I elbowed her again. Xandra, why do you ask stupid questions like that? I shouted at her. What? It's a legitimate question. We were raised in cages until we were sold and then escaped, and we're apparently super special too. If Sarin is just as special, why didn't she grow up locked in a cage the way we did? Sarin, I'm so. It's okay, there's no reason to apologize, Alexa. Xandra has a valid point. All you two know is that you're special and rare, and that's why you were held captive in cages, so it makes sense why you would question why that didn't happen to me. The answer is quite simple, I was thought to be dead after my pack had been slaughtered. What? We both asked. You see, when my pack was killed, the man who found me was the one responsible for the attack, and he thought I was an Omega. The lowest of the low in a pack, and he had no idea who I really was. So, I was pronounced dead to the world. No one knew who I was destined to be, even Jasper didn't know until after he brought me here. So, had people known you were alive, I started to say. Then I more than likely would have ended up the way you two had, or worse, I could be the queen to a horrid vampire who would have forced me to have his children. Who in turn would have destroyed the entire supernatural world. Xandra and I sat back when she said that and looked at each other. Are you serious? Xandra asked. I'm very serious, Sarin replied. We all sat around in silence, and Owen hadn't said a word since we came into the office. "Owen, why are you in here?" Xandra asked with a snobba tone, and I looked at her again. "The Luna's normal guard is off today, so I am taking his place." "Oh. Xandra, you seem to ask a lot of questions," Owen said to her and lifted his brow. "I have to have the answers to everything. I don't like being kept in the dark, both literally and figuratively." "Those are some big words for someone who was kept in captivity their entire life," Owen said questionably to her. "We may have been kept in cages, but we're not stupid, Owen. We may not know a lot about the outside world, but it's not like we weren't taught how to speak and use words or know their meanings," I said to him in our defense. "Owen, you can go," Sarin said to him after sensing some tension in the room. "I'm fine, and I don't need a babysitter." Owen nodded his head and left. "How are you able to tell him what to do?" "He's so much older," I asked her. "Well, be that as it may, we have a hierarchy in a pack, and I outrank him. He's a guard and an Omega. I'm the Luna." "Right, you're like the queen of this pack," Xandra said. "Exactly. Age doesn't matter in a pack. There are only a few others who outrank the leadership of a pack, and that's the Moon Goddess and the Elders." Xandra and I looked at her confused. There was still so much to learn about being werewolves. "So, does the rest of the pack know you have powers?" Xandra asked, and Sarin smiled. "They do now, but at first not everyone did." "What happened when you told them?" I asked her. "Well, that's a long story, but the short version is that many of the pack members thought Jasper and I were lying. That is until several pack members who witnessed me using my powers firsthand verified everything, and of course, I showed my powers to the pack." "What happened?" Xandra asked. "As you could imagine, a lot of pack members were terrified of me, and rightfully so. A lot of pack members already disliked me because I was practically brought in off the streets when Jasper first found me. Then it was discovered who I really was, the long-lost heir of the Silver Lake pack. Then, because of extenuating circumstances, I abandoned the pack and came back in the form of another with the help of good magic. And let me tell you, that did not bode over well with the pack. I was living amongst them in disguise for several months before I came back in my true form. A lot of people hated me, not only that, but they also no longer trusted me. Some even went as far to petition with the elders to strp me of my tle and have me banished." "That's horrible," I responded. "It is, but I also didn't blame them. I basically had lied to 90% of the entire pack since day one of my arrival here. And at first, the elders were going to banish me. What about Jasper and your son?" "Jasper would have been pped of his alpha tle, and Sam would have lost his birthright. However, a friend of ours, another alpha by the name of Richard, came to the rescue. He knew the entire story, or at least up to a point. Jasper explained everything to Richard in more detail, and of course, apologized for lying to him. But once Richard had the entire truth, he went to the elders along with Ronan, Grace, and the few witnesses we had on our side. They convinced the elders not to go through with it." "What did the pack members that wanted you gone have to say?" Xandra carefully asked. "They were given a choice by the elders. Deal with it or leave the pack. They probably weren't too happy with that, were they?" I asked, and Sarin just smiled, shaking her head. "No, they were not. Some actually did end up leaving, but there are a lot of pack members who ducked it up and just dealt with it. Even though the elders sided with us, our actions didn't go unpunished. Our pack has been watched by the elders for the last year, and everything Jasper did that concerned the pack had to be run by the elders first. If they didn't agree with Jasper's decision, it would be overturned. Thankfully, that ended not too long ago and nothing major happened until the two of you arrived. Wait, are you saying that the elders know about us? Xandra asked with her voice full of fear. Yes, but don't worry. All they know is that you're two lone werewolves who are victims. They know nothing about you two being special or anything else of that matter. They're more concerned with the fact that there are traffickers of the supernatural close to the pack territory, so they are focused more on protecting the pack than they are figuring out why you two are so special. Do you know why we're so special? I asked her. Xandra and I still had no clue as to why we grew up the way we did, and we both still had nightmares thinking that everything was a dream. Xandra would wake up screaming and I would wake up drenched in a sweat thinking we were still locked in those cages, or that we were falling into the lake again, except this time we didn't make it out. I do, but for your safety, I can't tell you. If the information I knew got out, it could put everyone in danger, and as the Luna, it is my duty to protect this pack and everyone in it. That includes the two of you. Xandra and I nodded our heads and didn't press any further. One more thing, the Alpha's meeting is going to be taking place this coming Friday to Monday, and I need you two to stay in your rooms until that is over. We can't have outsiders knowing that you're here. Are they bad people? Xandra asked. Not necessarily, but there are few Alphas that Jasper doesn't trust too much, and we don't want the wrong people finding out about the two of you. We nodded our heads in understanding. I looked at Xandra and we were thinking the same thing. We had no reason to doubt Sarin because everything she did was to protect and help us ever since we got here. We knew she only had our best interest at heart, so we agreed to do whatever she told us for the time being. Levi's POV. The boss and I were heading to a meeting and I had no idea what the hell was going on. Ever since we lost Project Gemini, there had been nothing but radio silence until a few days ago. The boss had me accompanying him wherever the hell it was we were going, and he left Bane in charge of the business until we returned. I wasn't exactly sure where we were going until we pulled up to an iron gate, and I noticed the surrounding area looked familiar. Security guards came to the car and the boss lowered his window. Name please, the guard asked. Last name Archimedes, first name Marvin. Welcome Alpha Archimedes. Once you go through the gate, follow the main road until you end up at the castle. Thank you, the boss responded. I looked at him through the rearview mirror and saw him flash the fakest smile I had ever seen. Did these guys call him Alpha? Boss, why did they refer to you as Alpha? I asked in curiosity with all due respect. Because that's what I am, imbecile. Did you think that any werewolf could get away with trafficking the supernatural? No, but I didn't think. I don't pay you to think, Levi, I pay to do what I say. Now, shut up and drive. If the girls really did end up here, it won't be long until we find them. Wait, are you saying that we're at Blue Lake? I looked at him surprised. I had only seen the pack territory from the mountainside and wasn't aware that was our current location. What spot do you think? He said and pointed to this left. I looked outside the window and saw the massive lake. Because of you and your team's incompetence, I had to pull teeth to get an invite to this damn Alpha's meeting. Our job is to find the girls and get them out of there before the end of this weekend. I understand, boss, I won't let you down again. You'd better not. Because if you fail me this time, I won't hesitate to kill you and your family. I gulped and nodded my head. When we pulled up to the castle, I was about to get out to open his door when he stopped me. Levi, take this potion, he said, handing me a vial. What is this? I asked, looking down at it and back at him. It's a potion that will mask your human scent. We can't have hundreds of wolves smelling the stench of a mortal within their midst. It would raise too many red flags. I nodded and took the potion in one gulp. I only hoped the boss knew what he was doing. Chapter 15. Jasper's POV. The weekend of the Alphas meeting was finally here, and I was under so much stress that I was on the verge of pulling my hair out. It was bad enough that Elder Jonah would be here, but apparently, Alpha Xavier brought in another Alpha from out of state that no one had ever heard of. When I saw the updated list of Alphas that would be in attendance, the first thing I did was vet the unknown individual. Alpha Marvin Archimedes was from Montreal, Canada. I wasn't sure why an Alpha from out of state, let alone outside of the country, decided to show their face last minute, but he seemed to be on the up and up, so I allowed for the 11th hour change. As Sarin and I were out front welcoming all of the incoming Alphas, Kendrick, Melody, Jason, and Milan were inside getting things prepared for the weekend. Although most Alpha meetings took place at the time of a celebration, this weekend was only going to be for the sake of renewing treaties. "Richard, it's great to see you again," I said to Alpha Richard of Golden Moon. It had been a year since we last saw each other, and I was curious to know how the newborns taken into his pack were doing. "Jasper, good to see you as well, and Luna Sarin, I'm glad to see that everything seems to be back to normal," he said and kissed the back of her hand. "Alpha Richard, it's always a pleasure to see you," she replied to him. "You remember Griffin and Brent, don't you?" Richard asked as two men showed up behind him. "Griffin. It's so good to see you. How's Killian?" Sarin practically shouted. "Hello, Luna. It's great to be seen, and Killian is doing wonderfully. He's growing up fast, and he's running around driving me and his grandparents insane." "Boys will be boys," she said, shrugging her shoulders. "Brent, how are you?" I asked him, shaking his hand firmly. "I'm sure Kelsey and the others will be excited to know that you're here." "Alpha, thank you for having me here. I'm excited to see them as well. After spending nearly 1 year in a cage together, it will be nice to reconnect. Please go on in, our betas will show you to your guest rooms," Sarin said to them while pointing towards the door. "Richard," I stopped him and whispered in his ear. "I could use your professional advice on something. Can we have a private moment tonight after dinner?" "Of course, anything you need," he replied, and I smiled. I let him go to get settled in. As he went inside, I felt Sarin tense in reaction to something. "Tink, what's wrong?" I asked her. "Jasper, who is that?" she asked. I looked up to see an unknown dark sedan approaching. When I saw the vehicle had Canadian plates, I knew that it had to be Alpha Archimedes. "That has to be the Alpha that Xavier of Black Moon invited last minute," I told her. "Why am I getting the willies from his car?" she asked as it came to a halt and the driver stepped out. Sarin immediately furrowed her brows at the driver, and I could tell that she was uncomfortable with him also. He came around to where we were standing and opened the back door. The individual who stepped out was not who I was expecting. "Hello, my name is Marvin Archimedes, Alpha of the Devil's Moon Pack in Montreal," he said, extending his hand to mine. I shook it and I could feel him immediately trying to size me up, which was kind of ironic given that he was barely a few inches taller than Sarin and looked to be in his mid-40s. "Hello, my name is Jasper Valencia. Welcome to the Blue Lake Pack. This is my mate and Luna, Sarin." "Luna, it is a pleasure," he responded and tried to shake her hand. But for the first time today, Sarin actually took a step back and refused to return his greeting. This didn't go unnoticed and Archimedes obviously felt disrespected. I apologize, Alpha Marvin. My mate is a little shy towards newcomers, I quickly defended her. He didn't seem to buy it, but he accepted my response anyway. Please go on inside, and our betas and gammas will escort you to your guest room. He and his driver nodded and proceeded on. As soon as they went through the door and were completely out of hearing range, Sarin turned to me and said, Jasper, his driver is human. What? I looked down at her. He's trying to mask his scent, but it's not doing much when it comes to my sense of smell. He's human, and that Alpha is not to be trusted. Why? Did you read his mind? No, but he's a werewolf that reeks of human. Remember what Dr. Andrews said? If a wolf spends too much time with humans, they can start smelling like them. I moved my head to the side at what she just said and looked back towards the front door of the castle. I knew that this sudden change in the Alpha guest list was too suspicious to be coincidental. Jasper, I don't want that guy anywhere near Sam or Alexa and Xandra. He's bad news, I can feel it. Okay, I'll get William and Olivia to keep an eye on him for us, I reassured her. She nodded her head and glared towards the castle. Sarin was on edge. And this was the first time I've seen her in straight-up protection mode. We spent the next couple of hours greeting the rest of the incoming alphas, and once the last one on the list arrived, we headed back inside. There was still another hour before dinner, but it looked like the party had already started inside the ballroom where dinner was supposed to be held. I guess Brent found the others, Sarin said. I looked over at the far corner where the alcohol was being served and, sure enough, they were all being rowdy like they were still in college. Brent seemed to be genuinely happy for Kelsey and the others and the fact that they had mates and kids now. Victor introduced Diana to him, and they all seemed to be getting along great. The alphas were gathered in their own corner, drinking their brandy and whiskey, and mingling while talking shop, and the betas were socializing nearby. A few lunas that were in attendance were gossiping in their own corner as well. Luna Sarin, come join us, one of them shouted, and I could only watch as she dragged her away. Sarin was by far the youngest amongst them, but they treated her with respect and included her in all of their gossips. I also watched as Kendrick and Jason joined in with the other betas, and my sister along with a few other omegas were serving the guests. My mom was in the kitchen with Zoe and Michelle, and Milan looked like she was about to fall over. Milan, I said, going up to her and placing a hand on her shoulder, go rest, you look like you could use it. Oh my God, thank goddess for you, Jasper, she said and handed me the tray she was holding. She immediately went upstairs and disappeared. I shook my head and smiled as I passed the tray to another omega. Son. I turned to see my father. What's up, Dad? Mr. Williams just told me dinner is ready to be served. Nice, I'll make the announcement. Why don't you grab Mom and Sarin and go sit down first? He nodded his head as he tapped my shoulder and left. I quickly and respectfully announced that dinner was ready to be served, and everyone dispersed to the tables and chairs. All of the alphas and lunas sat at one table while the other guests sat at other tables. I took my place at the head of the table with Sarin on my right and my dad on my left. Once the food was served, the sounds of laughter and conversations died down as everyone began to enjoy their meals. But Sarin didn't seem to be enjoying her food. Dearest, what's wrong? I asked her. I've lost my appetite, she replied. Sweetheart, are you feeling okay? My dad asked her. That alpha from Canada, I don't like him, and the fact that he's here in our home is making me uneasy. Tink, I told you I would get Lorenzo on it, so I need you to trust me. She let out a deep sigh and just nodded her head. Try not to think about it too much and remember to keep your powers under control. Not everyone knows about you and we can't freak them out. She nodded again and slowly began to eat. So, Alpha Jasper, Xavier tells me that you have an orphanage. Archimedes said in the form of a question, breaking the comfortable silence everyone had fallen upon. I looked over at Sarin, and she was clearly taken aback by the question. Yes, we do. It was created by my late grandfather, I answered cautiously. My dad gave me a look, indicating that he also didn't feel comfortable with the fact that an unknown individual was asking about the orphanage. I was also a little irritated that Xavier of Black Moon would give away that kind of information to someone that I've never met. Tell me, do you make it a habit of taking in unwanted wolves off the streets? Excuse me? I replied. His tone was clearly one of mockery and everyone else at the table noticed it as well. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean any disrespect. I just find it somewhat distasteful and desperate. After all, you're taking in rogues just to increase your numbers. Alpha Marvin. I would watch what you say about my pack. I may do things differently compared to the other alphas, but that by no means gives you or anyone here the right to disrespect me. I said, slamming my fist on the table and making it shake. Marvin, I invited you to this meeting as a courtesy, don't make me regret that decision. Alpha Xavier said to him, clearly offended on my behalf. Xavier, when I asked you where the next Alpha's meeting was going to be held, you told me Blue Lake, and you spoke so highly of them. But you're the one who told me that you didn't agree with a pack having an orphanage, did you not? Archimedes asked him with a smug and obnoxious look on his face. I looked over at Xavier. Do not take my words and twist them to make me the enemy here, Marvin. I told you that I didn't agree with it because of my personal fear of the unknown. Don't take my personal caution as a sign of me insulting Jasper or his own tactics. All alphas are different, but we never pass judgment on another unless it can prove harmful to everyone else, Xavier explained. I didn't need to read his mind to know that he was regretting he invited this guy. Gentlemen, let us not let our personal differences ruin this night. We are here to talk business and build new alliances or decide if we want to cut ties with another. Tonight is neutral, as are all first nights of the Alpha Meetings weekend, Richard said calmly yet sternly. We have elders in attendance, and they will not hesitate to get involved if they deem it necessary. I find it strange that elders are in attendance for a simple Alphas meeting, Archimedes said. Is there something that I should know? The reason for the elders being present is none of your concern, my father said to him. This is a private pack matter, and I would appreciate it if you kept your commentary to yourself until the meeting tomorrow. I'm sorry, but I wasn't aware that there were two alphas of Blue Lake. What say your Luna, Alpha Jasper? Does she not have a mouth of her own? Is she mute? She obviously doesn't know respect even if slapped her in the... I immediately slammed my fist into the table again, and Blade was threatening to take over. Alpha Marvin! I roared. You will know your place as a guest in my home. Do not disrespect my Luna or I will rip your head off your body. Alpha Marvin, I don't know how packs are run in Canada, but here in the United States insulting another Alpha's Luna is punishable by death. So if I were you, I would shut that hole in your face and move away from the table. You have obviously crossed the line with Alpha Jasper, and you are no longer welcome at this table, Elder Jonah said calmly as he stood to his feet. Very well, it's not like this dinner was all that great anyway. Come, Levi. Archimedes stood up and exited the ballroom. I looked down when I realized Sarin had finally said something. Before you go, Archimedes turned around to face her, your blatant disrespect towards me, my alpha, my pack, and towards the other guests at this table will not go unpunished. Excuse me, he gritted his teeth. Kendrick. Yes, Luna. Kindly escort Alpha Marvin and his driver to their guest rooms to remove their belongings. They are no longer welcome in this castle, and as such, will be staying in one of the guest cottages. Find one that is vacant, and escort them there. Right away, Luna, Kendrick replied with a smirk. Respect is not a given right, Alpha Marvin. Respect is earned, Sarin said before finally dismissing him and his driver. Sarin's rank was well known by all the other alphas in the room, but it was obvious that Archimedes was taken aback by her boldness. If only he knew who and what she really was. Join our Facebook and WhatsApp group for more updates, link is given in description. Rest audiobook will be continued in next episode.